We welcome back our good friend, Pastor Ryan Burge. Thanks for joining us, Ryan.
Thanks so much for having me.
So, as we are thinking about urgency and how important it is for people in the church to be doing things right now, the reality is this is a hard time in North American church statistically. You know better than most anyone else. But also, you're a person of hope. You're a person who believes in the God who brings life from death. You've experienced as a pastor the closure of a couple of congregations. And so, as I think about the hope that we have as we strive for something better, I'm thinking of that verse in Hebrews chapter 13, verse 14, where the writer says that here on earth we have no lasting city, but we seek the city that is to come. I would love for you, based on your experience, to share some stories that give you hope and promise, even when ministry is really hard for us.
Yeah, I mean, there are some dark days there, right?
Mm,
When you see your congregation go from 50 to 30 to 10 and then to make the choice to close, that's tough. A church that existed since 1868, people that have been in that congregation for literally decades. The thing that made me hopeful was realizing just because our story ends doesn't mean the story ends, right?
okay.
Our church is important and we want to be part of the kingdom, but that doesn't mean the kingdom's over when our church closes. There are other churches in our community. They're doing good work at the kingdom. And I think we have to realize that there's a process called creative destruction, which is, out of the death of things comes new life and new hope. And our church building is actually being used as a classical Christian school right now. There are kids sitting in those classrooms that we used to sit in for Sunday school classes and using that sanctuary to have chapel time. So, even out of the death of our church came something new. And listen, I know the end of the story, and this is not the end of the story. Like I know how it all ends, and my church closing is not the last chapter of the last book, where it says the end at the end. That's not where we are right now. We're still somewhere in the middle, and I think that's what gives me hope is that my job as a Christian, as a pastor, is to hand the baton, to take the baton from the prior generation, and then hand that baton on to the next generation, and let them write the next chapter of the kingdom of God. And my church was part of that for a while, but it was not destined to be part of that, forever. And that's okay because Christianity did not go away when my church closed. It actually still exists, is strong, is growing in many parts of the world, in many regions. So it's your story is important, but you got to think about where you fit in the larger story of what's happening to American Christianity. And the church has endured so many things that it will certainly endure this.
Hmm. Yeah, and I want to return to something that you said there because it kind of triggered a flashback. So in our tradition, every pastor has to take Greek, take Hebrew classes, and one of the Greek words that I really loved is that paradidomi, the handoff that Paul talks about to Timothy. And you have a great perspective on this generational handoff. So how
Yep.
can we embrace our role as we are handing that baton off, whatever that may look like for us?
Yeah, so what I'm always struck by is, Moses does all these amazing things, right? And gets the Hebrew nation out of bondage and takes them to the Red Sea. And then they complain like crazy when they're in the wilderness about food and water and snakes and everything else. And then he gets to the edge of the promised land, and God says to him, "You are not going to cross over into the promised land. We're going to let your servant Joshua be the one to take them across the Jordan River." That's our job, right? Our job is to do our job, to get us to take our congregation, our group, our world to the place that we can take it to, and then hand the baton. Who's the Joshua that we're handing this baton off to? And if we do a good job, it's not the size of the next generation that matters, it's the leadership of the next generation that matters. And if we could hand that baton to them in a way that, Joshua was handed that baton and carried forward the nation of Israel, we can carry forward the church.
Yeah, that's awesome. I appreciate your perspective. Thanks again, Ryan.
Thank you.